I had a gun on the table. I was out of here. I didn't want to be alive anymore.
That is your new that is your new Padre Pio, Saint Padre Pio. Welcome to Men's Morning Lights. I'm Trapper Jack. Shia LaBeouf. Yeah, Shia LaBeouf. What was the initial movie I saw him in? You saw him in the Transformers. Yeah, that guy. That guy. He's done 40 movies, 10 in which he appeared nude. His mom doesn't care to talk to him much because she finds him very embarrassing. All the stories of sexual assault, shooting dogs. He's an alcoholic. And this is the new Padre Pio. How is that? How is it that in the midst of all this, Padre Pio, the man who had the wounds of Christ, the stigmata, all the miracle stories, the bilocation stories, the stories from the confessional, how did this happen that this director, writer, Abel Ferrara, a Buddhist, wants to do a movie about Padre Pio, and he calls Shia LaBeouf? Why? They'd been on Zoom calls together, and a lot of suffering in those calls. They were kind of spiritual calls, group people. And in the suffering of Shia LaBeouf and where he was at, he thought, well, Padre Pio, he had a lot of suffering, a lot of turmoil, a lot of battles within him too. That's my guy, and that's why he contacted him. I'm gonna play a little bit here from a Bishop Robert Barron interview with Shia LaBeouf. Hour and 20 minutes is, you've got to watch this. It is one of the meatiest, I say meatiest, riveting Christian interviews I have ever seen, because this incredible transformation of Shia LaBeouf, a man who would argue against Catholicism whenever it came up, argue against it, made him feel superior, made him feel knowledgeable. And when he got this role, he immediately said, well, I've got to research this. His ego took over, so I got to research this. So he went to this Capuchin seminary in California to get all the research and started going through this transformation. So Padre Pio and God worked on Shia LaBeouf. But here's a little bit more of Shia from this interview.
Pio's interesting because Pio also saved my life. I mean, it's not just like a movie or something like that, and I don't mean that lightly. I had a gun on the table. I was out of here. I didn't want to be alive anymore when all of this happened. My life was on fire. I was walking out of hell. It wasn't like I willingly came in here, and my life was a mess, complete mess. And I had hurt a lot of people, and I felt deep shame, deep guilt. I didn't like to go outside much. I had a yearning not be here anymore. And I had also been told my whole life, like, your life is your life. You have to make with it what you can, It's up to you. When all of my designs failed, when all of my plans went out the window, when my life had led to serious infliction of pain and damage on other people, I threw up my hands like, my plans are garbage and I don't want to be here anymore. It wasn't until I felt like I started having emotional reactions in mass that I feel like I was anywhere near playing Pio. And it stops being this like prep of a movie, and it starts being something that feels beyond all that. A switch happened. It was like 3-card Monty. It was like somebody tricked me into it. And mass got very emotional, like really, really, really emotional. And then I felt like, okay, now I have permission to go study Pio, right? So you wind up with this enormous responsibility. And the task is to play like one of the most spiritual men that ever lived. You're playing one of the most respected, beloved saints that ever graced the earth. Some people in Italy don't carry a Jesus on them; they carry a Pio on them.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah, the transformation. He had to become Pio. He had to get comfortable with Latin, celebrating the Mass. And it was the Mass that really turned him around. It was the Latin Mass in particular, because that's what was that since Padre Pio celebrated the Mass in Latin, that's what he needed to learn as well. He didn't want to fake it. He did it in English. He didn't try to do some kind of phony baloney Latin, or rather Italian accent. He just did it as himself, but with everything that he could conjure up in himself, really, to play Pio. Interesting, before he got to that point, though, in this research at this seminary, first thing they said was, well, and he got to hang out with these Capuchins, and he said, they said, read, let's give you Matthew, and one of the nuns was kind of his did the catechesis with him. They studied Matthew, and he started studying the gospel and finding out that Jesus wasn't a wimp. He assumed he was just kind of this wimpy guy, said some things, and he came to find out that Jesus was quite a man, that meek and weak are two totally separate things. And so he then the next thing was, they stuck him in the chapel. They said, go sit in the chapel and shut up. That was step two. What did that mean? It means that he said the quiet. He wasn't used to experiencing quiet. He always had his phone, like we all do, where he was married to the phone. He's sitting there in the chapel with Jesus, which he may not even known was really Jesus yet, but he came to find out that the Eucharist is. And he sat there in the quiet and found that very, very different. He started reading Augustine. And of course, Augustine was this giant rebel, didn't want to convert Monica, his mom, and all of that. So he started reading the Confessions and finding out more there. Somewhere along the way, while he was there at the seminary, Bishop Robert Barron showed up because he had a conference scheduled with the deacons there. And Shia LaBeouf got to sit in. And so, Barron's nobody to him. All this is new. And he starts hearing Barron talk about prayer. And he begins quoting Saint Mother Teresa on prayer, on how to pray, the 4 steps. And now he's all in. Okay, this is something I can grab. What are the steps? One is be quiet. The second is think lovely thoughts. Lovely thoughts become lovely actions. Lovely actions lead to peace. And he's kind of writing this down. And then Barron starts talking about the rosary and the power of the rosary. He thinks, oh, yeah, that's because Padre Pio would pray dozens of rosaries in a day. I need, and so he started praying the rosary. And a funny thing happened while in prayer with the rosary as he quieted himself. He gets this message: call your mother and tell her you love her. Because they're not doing well together. She is so embarrassed by her son. And he calls mom and just says, I love you, Mom, and this is what I'm doing, and here's where I'm at. And she was just, I'm so filled with gratitude that you're okay, that you're safe, that this is awesome. She was just, and there was a reconnect there. So he's reading and he's doing, and at some point he starts going to the masses and getting emotional. It's funny, he compared to the old Latin Mass as a traditional Latin Mass and the Mass of the vernacular that most of us go to. He said, there's no comparison for me. He says, one feels like they're trying to sell me a car and the other one doesn't, So he was totally seduced by all of it, the smells, the bells, all of it, just all of it. And he just loved it. And he would cry. At some point, the catechesis was so good, obviously, and they're watching him there, that they said, well, you've been baptized, found out he'd been baptized. And they said, then we can bring you into the church. And he begins receiving the Eucharist. He begins going to daily Latin Mass up around San Francisco, but he realizes that Latin Mass is a little different than the one Padre Pio celebrated. So he goes to Italy and begins watching that and talking to people over there. And he was talking to one of the not seminarians, but one of the Capuchin priests, because he's bringing along step by step what he's reading, what he's experiencing. And he says, next is purpose. He says, what do you do really well? And he says, I suffer really well in the movies. I'm an actor. I suffer. I bleed really well. and the Capuchin goes, well, okay, if that's what you do really well, then suffer well, but use that to help others. And so I thought it interesting while he's talking to Barron, and you've watched this video that we're putting the link in. It's an hour and 20 minutes, and it's riveting. And you see how by sharing his own suffering, his own experiences, it's going to awaken something in you. And you're going to ask yourself a few questions on the way. You're going to ask yourself things like, am I this passionate about my faith? Am I this passionate about the Eucharist? Am I this passionate about the Mass, about confession? You'll get a sense that this is a guy. And it's funny, in the last week, at least 3 times, somebody has referenced themselves as being the one where Jesus left the 99 and came and got the one. And you see this with Shia LaBeouf. You see this leaving the 99, coming after the one in a very public way with this movie. And this movie, and again, the director-writer is a Buddhist, based on, and just a handful of people have seen this movie. They're still looking for who's going to distribute and things like that. Based on what I've read from the different critics, I would say it sounds a little confused. It's more about an era and a time, and it kind of includes one review actually said it's more cameo appearances by Padre Pio than true. Let's put it this way: I don't think you're going to find the holy Padre Pio with a lot of attention to the wounds of Christ and all of that. I think it's something else, but we'll see as it turns out. The bigger story and what God is doing here is probably with Shia LaBeouf, and just kind of an awakening and a questioning of our own, where we are right now in my faith and in your faith. Are we still kind of sleepwalking right now? Is there something you should be reading right now? Is there a next step for you? I guess is the question. Is there a next step for me? Where are you? Is there something we need to do to awaken ourselves? So I'll leave it with that. I want to just leave it with let's just going back. Just you don't have to just listen to this. The opening here. Just listen to this.
I had a gun on the table. I was out of here. I didn't want to be alive anymore.
I don't know where you are in all this, and you may be just fine where you are right now. We're all going through moments of conversion. We're all being converted, aren't we? At all times, we are being in the motion of being converted. Our conversion continues. Where are you in yours? You need to go to forum.org and just go a little deeper into some area about the Eucharist or the Mass or whatever. You need to find out more about the Latin Mass. You need to find out more about the Confessions of St. Augustine or some other saint that may be calling you. What is your next step so that you too can have this fire? He talked about he was on fire, walking out of hell. Now he's got that other kind of fire. I don't know about you, but I got a little bit of envy in me going, I want more of that. We should all be feeling that. I want a little bit more of that. Who knows? He may burn out. A year from now, maybe it's not quite the same as it is today, and maybe he'll be burning even brighter. Pray for him. You know he's going to be under scrutiny. Pray for him. This is a great conversion story. God bless him. And thank you. God bless St. Padre Pio. See you next week on Men's Morning Light.